Hey everyone, so I'm still alive, still free, not cursed or mutated, all things considered, better than could be expected. I mean, there is a bit of an issue, but nothing being done by my more than average friends. At this point, though, I'm getting ahead of myself. Might as well just pick up where we left off. I left the lunchroom to see Harold standing with his arms crossed and a mildly annoyed look on his face. "Did you seriously just post all of that to Reddit?" he said, exasperated. My heart dropped. I could feel myself blanch. I'd been careful, changed a couple names and facts to protect the innocent and all that, but I never really expected him to go searching, especially that quick. I thought I'd made it vague enough. I began to ramble. Sure, I'm about a second away from a messy death. He waves his hand in a calm down gesture and cuts me off. "This isn't my first rodeo, kid. It happens like 8 out of 10 times we bring a human in. And I read it. You weren't trying to raise an army or anything. If I were to guess, you probably just wanted someone to know what happened if we ended up using you to sharpen our claws or something. Am I right? No harm, no foul. We have folks who are routing your posts to another corner of reality. No one's going to believe it, and if someone does, there's no way they can hurt us here. Feel free to vent, kid. We understand this is going to be a toll on your mind. Now, mean folks like us, they would rip off an arm and replace it with an angry snake for something like this. Me and the boys, not so much. I hope this goes to show you are in good company," he finishes. Saves me from buying a new pair of pants, at least. So, what is Size's problem? I mean, he's got some technique, as much as my opinion matters, and those hands have to do some damage when they hit, I say, trying to shift the topic of conversation. Well, Size, he has trouble with gore. Same reason he chooses to do this to buy his food instead of going hunting. He has a special diet. Spinal fluid. Human spinal fluid, like all of his kind. But the sight of blood, broken bones, it just freaks him out. And if he doesn't start winning a few fights, this isn't going to be a job option for him much longer. I don't expect you to be a punching bag, but he needs someone to talk to who has done this for a while. His kind, they're not well liked. I'm not actually even his manager, just a friend, but I do not have the time to do my job and help him. I know it's odd, training your first opponent, but it'll let you guys practice a gimmick," Harold says, pausing for my input. "A gimmick? Like wrestling?" I say. "A little. The fights are legitimate, but we are entertainment. We have characters, plot lines, all that good stuff. Difference being the outcome of the matches determine that, not vice versa. It's also common if one fighter has a huge advantage to engage in some kind of staged stunt to mitigate it. This, Size has down pat. Size, give us an entrance." Harold yells the last bit, trying to distract Size from the spider he was climbing the wall to follow. With a flip that makes me wonder if I should be agreeing to this, he lands on the ground. What I see next is a transformation that I've been told is essentially just acting, but I'm still having trouble accepting that. So far, he has given me a kind of slow Loris vibe. Creepy, but not threatening necessarily. But apparently, he has another side. He takes off his sweatshirt and tosses it aside, revealing a well-muscled, lean frame. Slowly, his eyes change to the same color as his skin, his posture straightens, and a black mist starts to materialize around him, forming a long, trailing open jacket that leaves wisps of black fog looking matter behind it. I go to make a comment, and Harold stops me. "I feel weeding coming up. Just don't," he says. I wasn't. I just wanted to say he is a man that appears very slim. A slim man, if you will. If only there was a catchier way of saying that, I say with a smirk. Say that to his face, and you get to deal with his mood. How would you feel if I said, "Are you that kid from Little Monsters?" Probably like I'm a bit of an idiot, as you are not a character from an 80s movie. Just watch. Harold chides me. Sighs tosses his head back, and a deep, forbidding voice echoes through my skull, seeming to come from inside my head. Denizens of the shadows, in our midst is a creature most vile, a human who seeks nothing more than to hurt and maim our plagued kind, driven by nothing more base than the desire for coin and revenge. Sighs points at me, and I feel my blood go cold. Is he just another clueless traveler? Or is he one of the hated Order of Heroes? The mist spreads around him, turning the ring into a shifting hellscape. It takes everything in me to engage. The level of fear, darkness, and the unknown that Sighs is exuding seems too powerful to be just an act. Harold elbows me in the ribs. "Don't just stare. Play a part, kid," he says, snapping me out of my fear-induced daze. I shake myself off and start to mime eating a massive hamburger and walking with an oversized firearm over one shoulder. I don't really have a plan, so I wing trying to be a heel based on what Sighs said and a collage of good guys from old horror films. I saunter to the ring, looking disgusted toward the crowd, mime throwing the hamburger at the audience and holding the firearm at the ready. I don't know about any order, but I'm certainly a fucking hero there, stickbug. And I'm going to make all you bastards pay for killing my sister. If I have to do it one freak at a time, guess you'll all have to take a number. I jump to the ring and mime firing the gun. Sighs catches on quick and hits the ground, causing his jacket to dissipate in a violent cloud as if shot. I turn to the non-existent crowd with an asshole grin. "Didn't say I'd be fair about it, did I?" I say, tossing the mock gun away. Sighs raises on a plume of smoke to a fighting stance. I let fear and idiot surprise wash over my face. "Oh shit," I say before breaking character. "How'd I do?" Harold laughs. "No points for originality, but you pulled it off well," he says approvingly. I look over to Sighs, who has let his fog dissipate. Eyes go back to normal, and posture return to slightly hunched. "Vox populi of a fine vintage it was," Sighs agrees, I think. I spent the rest of the day going over some of Sighs' old fights with Harold, and he was right. The guy comes out like a pro, but starts pulling his punches a couple rounds in. It shocks me. That thing has such an aversion to doing damage. Harold tells me we have a week and makes very clear I'm not to throw the fight. This is about a good show, not a good record. I decide to bunk at the gym. It's easier, and honestly, the thrill of seeing some new funky things walking in is still fresh. Next morning, I brew up a pot of coffee and wait for Sighs. "Flames barely kiss the horizon, but you are an early worm," he says sleepily. It kills me. Eloquent urban legend is the act. Good call. Just wanted to think about how to help your little problem without letting you beat me to a pulp, I say as Sighs pulls out a large plastic bottle with his full name printed on the side. I won't even try to put it here. Let's just say it filled one side of the jug. He mixes this half and half with coffee and sits down. "Was that," I say, curious, but not really wanting to know the answer. "Ambrosia of the sweetmeats," he says, offering me the cup. "No, I'm good. So, I don't know how to put this nicely, but do you understand me?" I say, feeling like I'm picking on him. "One-way streets, all the way down to the butcher's," he says. I take a moment to parse the sentence. "Your issue is output, not input, then?" I say, and thankfully Sighs just nods. But I saw you do, that evil Patrick Stewart monologue, I say, doing my best to not sound like a jerk. We all have masks to wear, he says wistfully. I'm guessing this is just a don't question it situation. So what's the deal with the kid gloves? I inquire. Memories, misty moonlight memories. Past has passed, and those that passed still hold palaver. Don't give me that old-time religion. No, not for this rosy-cheeked boy. Sighs presents this word salad to me, and I take my time consuming it. Did some bad stuff? I say, trying to keep things simple. Excelsior, Sighs confirms. Me too. Used to be a bouncer. What they don't tell you is that even hemophiliacs start the odd fight if they ignore the doctor and get wasted. 2 punches is all it took. The guy's face just never stopped bleeding. I was acquitted, self-defense, but I still get dreams. I'm not lying. The reason I got into my current career is to make sure something like that doesn't happen again. If I cannot surmount the hill, then I will have to climb the mountain, Sighs says sadly. I get that, but I'm getting paid well to avoid that, and I've got some ideas, I reply. I won't bore you with the minutiae of the training. We sparred, we lifted weights, and I realized more and more how lucky I was to be doing a boxing match instead of a full contact match with Sighs. How did I get him over his gore hatred? Well, I haven't completely, but as you remember, I had a few years on a kids show. I downloaded a bunch of episodes and a bunch of shit old slasher flicks and spent countless hours getting him to make the connection between acting and our fights. I'm thinking it's a bit of a band-aid, but at least with me, he can deal with passing out some pain. Harold got me a costume consisting of a large fake gun, sleeveless flannel shirt, camo pants, and a couple of bandoliers. He finished it off with a drippy, sloppy hamburger the size of my head. We went through a more practiced version of our original lead-in. Sighs was accompanied by some kind of screeching violin music that made me feel like something was looming over my shoulder. I went old school, with the Lagwagon cover of Mama Said Knock You Out. It sounds driving badass, until you listen to the poop-based lyrics and realize it's the dumbest fucking song ever written. My persona in a nutshell, really. The ref was a tall creature with eyes dotting every random surface. You know the rules. Body only, no abilities, powers, hexes, soul transference, possession, low blows, biting, or swearing. Let's have a good, clean fight, it says, starting the bout. There was no boring first round this time. We both knew what the other could do. Sighs keeps me at range, his cinder block-sized fists providing him with a lot of visual blocks. But I see this coming and let him, backing up just out of range. The oversized fists hit like a ton of bricks, but are also a lot less likely to hit on target. I'm blocking low blows with my hip and punishing him for them with unimpeded jabs. This is the first full-strength bout we have had, and I wince a little as my fist lands squarely in Sighs' oversized eye. Not something I'm used to. He stumbles backward, and I press in. Let's call this my first mistake. Little bastard was faking me out. He twists his torso like an owl's neck and gives me a backhanded body blow that sends me to the ground. I'm up before the count starts and starting in on him again. Half proud, half angry, as my right side feels like a gigantic bruise. I realize I need to play it smart. While Sighs' wrists are muscled as hell, his arms have normal-ish proportion after that. If I can keep his guard raised, he will tire. I spent the rest of the round throwing high combinations, making him keep those 10-pound hammers he humbly calls fists up in the air. I take a couple glancing blows, one opening up a small cut on my cheek. Moment of truth. As the bell rings, Sighs throws me and the ref a wink and stalks over to me. A long, black tongue slips from his mouth and laps the blood from my face. He grins a predatory smile at me. "Thank you so much for the amuse-bouche," he says before returning to his corner. My provided cut man, a purple skinny thing with fingers like deep-sea creatures' antennae, ices me and sets me back out for round 2. Size may be weird, but he isn't dumb. He comes out with no guard, daring me to overcommit. Now, in a regular MMA fight, this tactic fails 100% of the time. But with the way Size is built, he can launch a low punch without trying. I start by trying to bide my time, but I realize all I'm doing is giving him a rest. I try to go in low, but hitting him in the gut has as much effect as punching foam. Guy's muscles are like rubber in some places. I try to go for some rib shots, but get a punishing combo to my stomach that flares up the damage from the backhand blow. In desperation, I put up my guard, lower my body, and try to bull rush my way in. I have him on the ropes, inside his guard, but I take 2 full-force punches for the effort. Even hitting my arms in a perfect guard, I feel the shock. I go all out, no style, just as many rabbit punches as I can get in. His body starts to droop, and I get ready to launch an uppercut and end this, but the bell stops my assault. "Good job," I whisper before returning to my corner. At this point, we're both feeling it. I'm bruised, I'm cut, and Size has one eye that won't stay open. As we start the 3rd round, I come out, hands down, mocking his previous stance. He looks confused for a moment, as this isn't something that actually gives me an advantage. He takes his shot, a roundhouse right, aimed straight at my head. I bank on being faster, and it actually works out. I launch my own blow, but not at his body or head, but his forearm. I connect, and it shatters, leaving the massive attached fist dangling and Size looking quizzically at the limb. I'd feel worse, but in like 24 hours he'll be fine. I take advantage of the shock and go in with style, not rage. I bounce, keeping on his left and throwing anything he can't block. I frustrate him, and his swings become wild. I start to work his ribs, trying to set him up for the uppercut I couldn't before, when the sneaky bugger pulls out another trick. His body instantly folds just under his ribs. My finishing blow hits collarbone before I can generate any force, and I'm essentially in a clinch with a creature that has folded its body into a 7 shape. I have just enough time to wonder how and why as he unfolds himself. A devastating uppercut fueled by more muscles than I knew he had puts my lights out before I hit the mat. The crowd went nuts. We made sure we were okay in the locker room, and I congratulated Size on not being a wuss about blood. I have a tradition after I lose a fight. I usually find the shadiest diner and order the greasiest thing on the menu, and that is exactly what I did that night. As I waited for my deep-fried meatloaf and mashed potatoes, a massive guy plops himself in my booth. He was about 6'3", dark-skinned, with facial tattoos that I know I've seen before. Maury, I think, but what gives me pause is his outfit. He's wearing a nice pair of dress pants and a suit coat, but a wife-beater underneath, and with the telltale bulges of weapons showing. My bouncing days showed me how to spot a casual, guy who likes to cause havoc but wants to blend in beforehand. And this guy fit the bill. "We need to have a conversation," the man says, staring a hole through me. I'm getting the worst possible vibes, but I'm also not willing to let this guy intimidate me. Listen, I'm flattered, but the fact you're trying to pick up a beat-up guy that looks homeless at 2 a.m. in a shady diner tells me you're creepy as fuck. So take that substitute for fight experience on your face and get the hell out of my booth, I say, matching his glare. A smile that scares me more than anything I've seen in the past week spreads across his face. His hands are under the table, and I hear the telltale click of a gun being cocked. I then feel a deep stabbing pain in my calf. I feel blood begin to run down my leg. Now that I've got your attention, mate, you make one more fucking sound, and I shoot you, the rest of this sad shit little place, and get back to Oz before your cops wash the donut frosting from their hands. Another bust of pain in my leg punctuates his point. I'm guessing a knife-tipped shoe? I represent a group of people that truly understand the dangers of the filth you chose to work with. Our goal, as it's been since the start of history, is to wipe their stain from the world. And you, Terry, are in a unique position to help us. See, we have been following them, following you. We know about the fighting pits, and we know the depravity within. We just don't have access, and that is where you come in. We want you to make friends. We want you to get in a position to help us. For now, just keep consorting with your demons. When you become truly useful, we will let you know. If you are thinking of going to your friends or simply ignoring us, I just want you to know. Bonita Gilmore, 55, mother. Rachel DaCosta, ex-girlfriend, 24. Juan Gilmore, 13. And those are just the top 3. Fucking with us, mate, and we will skin every person that has bumped into you on the street, in front of you, one by bloody one. He finishes, smirking and taking his leave. So here I sit, 6 stitches in my leg, in my apartment, stuck between 2 groups that I have no power over. And beyond that, who's to say Paul Hogan from the diner isn't right? What do I really know about these things? I've taken some precautions so the boss won't see the more sensitive parts of this, so please give me help here, whether you believe me or not. Part 3. Hey everybody, right off the bat, I'm going to need to say this isn't Terry. No, today you get to hear from the great, the irreplaceable, the only guy willing to do my job for my pay, Alex Honduras. Stage name, obviously, though it is where my family originated. I guess it's where everyone like myself came from, but that's beside the point. Remember when Harry was talking about routing posts to different corners of reality? Well, that's me. Void Tech Supreme. But that's just my side gig. What people, whatever your definition of that is, know me for, however, is being the voice, the personality, the lifeblood of the LCPE, Legitimate Contest Paranormal Entertainment. Its valued and woefully underpaid announcer. I'm also the guy who's taking care of keeping Terry's little conundrum secret from the boss. If worse comes to worse, I'd rather those assholes try and show their face around here than start going after Terry's family. Judging by my heritage, you are probably picturing a sexy, charismatic human with beautiful dark skin. Well, you're almost right, except for the human part. I've got 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head where they usually go, but that's about the extent of it. Otherwise, I'm 5'6", with patchy white and brown skin, a slight frame, large red eyes that change hue depending on my mood, and long pointed quills as an alternative to hair. All wrapped up in a new, loud, eclectic suit each night. If you squint really hard, you could see some of the traits that spawned cattle mutilation-focused myths. Don't worry, though. We can digest meat as well as you can digest rocks. No idea where that rumor started. Likely more exciting of a story for the farmer who met one of my relatives than saying a weird pointy fella came by and offered him $1,000 for a bushel of corn and to shut up about who he sold it to. The reason you're hearing from me tonight is simple. I think Terry is doing something smart. In a way, he's doing the same thing we're trying, to see if we can get some kind of socialization between humans who are not complete head cases and our kind going again. I mean, a lot of folks like myself are a bit mean, to be blunt about it, but just like you guys, that's mostly the old guard. The type of folks who can't realize things are different now from when they were kids. Only difference is our folks like that can be thousands of years old, and sometimes we have a cult or 2 devoted to them. So him talking about those of us who are nothing like that is great. But my God, he could pick some more exciting things to talk about. You see, guys like him in size are real low on the totem pole. Almost the same kind of fight you'd see in any promotion. But we have so many steps above that. We run a safe promotion. That being said, when we are talking guys and gals who can play a casual game of Russian roulette, safe encompasses a whole hell of a lot. And that's what I want to tell you guys about. One of my favorite fighters and how a title bout looks. Sorry if you're more the type who wants to hear about the minutiae of our society, but come on, man. Everyone else wants to see a fight. So, picture, if you will, my sexy ass walking out to a packed stadium of humans, entities, and everything in between. I'm looking stunning in a well-tailored purple suit, which I paid a good amount of money to have display large, flashing exclamation marks when I'm really trying to make a point. The first fighter to enter the ring, I'm not gonna lie, is my all-time favorite. Does that make him objectively the best? Nope. Undefeated? Not at all. What I love about the guy is he's one of those entities that have been around for a long time. He spawned legends, terrified entire cities in one way or another, and even lived as a human actor for quite some time. He's also something special. We call them molds, as in what you cast things from. A mold is a person or entity that has a version of themselves in every known corner of reality. They're connected in weird ways, and while they don't always know it, they draw on the experiences of their counterparts when in dire straits. So, chances are, once I give you a name and a description, you may know of a person, famous or otherwise, who fits the bill. Don't go harassing them. They won't have a clue what you're talking about. And if these posts are going to a lower corner of reality, they're likely long dead. He doesn't go by a last name, just Buster. He stands a dainty 5'5". He's slight, but his body language conveys a sense of solidity and confidence. He's been known to use various costumes, but tonight he comes in his favorite, a pair of immaculately tailored black dress pants, black silk vest and tie, and a just off-white gray shirt. His medium-length black hair slicked back, for the moment, till the action starts. Besides his skill in the ring, he's known for his signature look, a stone-faced, deadpan stare. But his eyes. The man never speaks, but he could write a book with those eyes. Lastly, the longer you observe him, the more your vision starts to turn into a distorted black and white color scheme. Stare long enough, and you're watching life in the same quality I Love Lucy was recorded in. It's temporary, but I've yet to see anything immune to it. He walks to the ring, unaffected by the din of the crowd. They cheer him in a deafening roar as he lightly hops into the ring, as if the 10-foot standing jump was nothing. He appears to inspect the ring, his eyes conveying concern, as if something is not to his liking. The crowd quiets, scared they may not get to see the titanic battle. He places his hand on his face in a contemplative gesture, and with nothing more than an eyebrow raise and a panning look to the crowd, he lets them know he was just screwing with them. So what exactly is he? I know most of you have a little knowledge of how things work. No one knows, really. His real exploits and the myths that may or may not be inspired by him have blended together so seamlessly that it's more of an opinion rather than an observable fact. He's not a human, a malignant, or any other obvious guesses, but other than that, who knows? His cut man waddles after him, a massive, rotund sphere of a malignant, human in basic form, but his weight and features exaggerated to an extreme extent. He puts on a good show, but is also a paranormal medic of damn near unmatched skill. And he's the only entity Buster is known to speak to. Now, don't let my bias color your opinion too much. His opponent has a similar record, and I'm sure if you were talking to a superfan of his, you'd get a more in-depth description. But, as it stands, he calls himself Charon, and in my pointed opinion, pun intended, he is as pretentious as a name like that would imply. He dresses the part, a massive black cloak covering his skeletal frame. Oh, for all you nerds who are making textbooks, there are 3 name-brand creatures who exist. One is the skeleton, the other 2 are folklore from countries so small, if you knew about them, you'd already have met a couple. The skeleton starts out pretty frail, a small lump of flesh and nerves powering a human skeletal system. But if they can avoid being killed long enough, they grow, change, and improve, becoming massive beasts of bone shards and overlapping armor. Charon steps into the ring, shedding his cloak and revealing his towering, barbed, imposing form. The lump of meat that provides him life buried under layers of gray bone. Purple flame streams from his skull as he throws back his head, screaming loud enough to drown out the crowd and shake the walls. The fighters walk to the center of the ring. Okay, gentlemen, you both know the rules. Nothing that could hurt the crowd, no finishing blows, and absolutely no equipment. The fight ends just before one of you does. Try to take it any further than that, and you don't get a warning. The referee, a heavy-featured, gray-skinned golem constructed of human flesh and scrap metal, says, "Hello, ladies, gentlemen, biters, flyers, crawlers, those stopping in from the void, and any of you silly bastards that have stumbled in here on a dare. We have 2 of the biggest, baddest entities you are likely to see this side of the void, primed and ready to tear each other to shreds for your entertainment. We all know who I'm rooting for, but hell, I've been wrong before. Not that I'll ever admit that in person," I say as the 2 fighters stand, relaxed, daring the other to make the first move. Charon is the first to move, getting into a low, aggressive stance, plates of bone locking tighter, ready to launch attacks that have devastated buildings in his more aggressive days. Buster's cutman starts to wave his hands, trying to get his attention. Buster turns back to Charon and appears to be listening to something intently. This is why I love him. This isn't an act. This isn't being invincible or cocky. It's a fighting style. Taking his raw and esoteric power and filtering it into something controlled for sport. Charon attacks, roundhouse, barbed fists slamming into Buster with spatters of gore. Buster reacts, screaming as the blows land, but still appearing to try and hold his conversation with his cutman. Almost as soon as the dripping, bloody holes are torn out of him, though, they knit and seal, leaving nothing but stains on his clothing and gory chunks littering the ring. He keeps this up for a minute or so before finally turning his attention to his opponent. Far from simply being the result of being cocky, Buster was controlling where the blows landed, gauging his opponent and formulating strategy. Which isn't to say Charon is doing nothing. Buster is simply exchanging an early advantage for the long gain. "I hope everybody kept the kids, Spawn, or what have you at home tonight, folks, because things are getting bloody in a real fucking hurry," I scream, amping the crowd up. Buster is waving his hands, backing away, appearing to plead with Charon, but as the copyright-infringing tool launches a series of clawed stabs, Buster shows he can do no more than just absorb blows. It looks like the diminutive man is falling, stumbling, tripping over his own 2 feet, but every awkward tumble, every impossible lean with windmilling arms, takes him just out of the path of the ossified beast's hunting knife-sized claws. The towering bone mountain overcommits, letting Buster inside his guard. The movement is too fast to track, but with a ballroom-style spin, he tears a slab of bone plate from Charon's chest and steps just out of his reach. He looks at the piece of Charon quizzically and holds it out to him, a hangdog body posture as if to say, "Sorry, you can have this back." Charon roars in pain and slaps the chunk of his body from Buster's hand, catching the fragile-looking entity with a backhand that moved too fast for him to even think about dodging. He tumbles across the ring, uncontrolled this time, rebounding from the ropes into a debilitating straight right-handed punch from Charon that makes a flailed mockery of his chest. The crowd gasps, and Buster is hurt. He struggles to stay upright, but, as I've said before, with guys like this, safe has a pretty broad definition. I hate to say it, but my man was saved by the bell. Both cutmen work furiously, but at the start of round 2, both fighters are showing a bit of wear and tear. Buster is healed, but obvious lumps and scars adorn his now bare chest. Charon makes an almost mechanical-sounding click as he moves, a small layer of whiter bone revealed under the plate that was removed. Don't get the wrong impression. Buster is no one-trick pony. The guy has as many strategies as most people have freckles, and he comes out for round 2 with a totally different bag of tricks. He moves in vomit-inducing lurches, seeming, at times, to move from one spot to the next without going through the space between. He closes the distance almost instantly, and starts tossing awkward blows that come from angles and body postures that look more like convulsions than strikes. This puts Charon on the defensive. He tries to dodge and parry, but there are no tells, no wind-up, just a skip like missing film frames and a blow that hits his bone plates with a sound akin to a gunshot. No point in going for the head on a skeleton, and Buster knows this. Every blow aimed for the thickest bone plates on Charon's chest, behind which the vital bits of the creature are. "Looks like Buster has Charon on the ropes here, folks," I shout, pounding the table holding my audio equipment. Charon starts to throw wide, sweeping blows, using his size, foot-long bone barbs, and wide body to herd Buster toward a corner. With no room to move without going outside the ring, Buster's non-Euclidean movement does him no good. He snaps back into reality, much to the delight of anyone with a body capable of nausea, not to mention his opponent. Charon sets his legs wide and extends several spider leg-like bone appendages from his back. Buster tries a vertical leap, but receives a face-splitting headbutt that sends him to the ground. Charon begins to rain overhead blows down on Buster. The smaller fighter puts up his guard, but he can't get away from the punishing strikes. Bones in his arms cracking before his guard is broken, and Charon launches an uppercut that snaps Buster's neck, leaving him staring at the ceiling. Charon wraps 2 giant hands around Buster's midsection and raises him into the air. The appendages coil backward, ready to strike. With a sickening, cracking noise, Buster snaps his head back into place and grabs Charon's face with both hands, a swirling static void filling Buster's eyes. They are locked in a mental struggle as Buster tries to invade the skeleton's mind. The bone bastard is made of some pretty strong stuff, though, his limbs slowly making their way to skewer Buster. But the tactic pays off. The bell rings with the 6 spear-like limbs only embedded inches in Buster's body, not deep enough to tear him apart in a bloody explosion. Both cutmen do their best, but both of the fighters have wounds that are only going to be healed with rest, time, and possibly a dark ritual or 2. Buster is still bleeding from deep puncture wounds, his neck sitting at a slightly unnatural angle, and parts of Charon flake and chip off as he moves, bone plates no longer sliding seamlessly together. The 2 wounded warriors hear the bell ring and meet each other with much more caution than before. Charon attempts to keep the fight at range, jabbing and circling. Buster attempts to get inside his range, but his space-distorting ability is not cooperating, costing him several flesh-tearing blows. Only the worst of Buster's wounds are sealing now, many more piling up till he looks more like a soldier caught in an artillery strike than a professional fighter. He is losing momentum and tries a running leap at the skeleton. The creature proves it has a few tricks of his own to play, as in a blinding blur it grabs its left wrist in its right hand, tearing the limb free and using it as a club, smashing Buster into the canvas before his jump has even reached its apex. Bones shatter and gore showers the audience and myself, but stubbornly Buster tries to get up. Another slam from the club, and his form is a twisted, leaking wreck. Charon rises the bone club for a third blow and looks confused for a moment. The audience and myself, though, saw the twisted lump of gore stick to the club, then fly off as it reached its apex. As it twisted and turned, ropey strands of muscle and gristle knit themselves, giving the pile a form that was almost recognizable as human as it begins its descent. Charon looks up in time to see the human-shaped mess jab out a hand, driving itself with unnatural strength, and the momentum of a 15-foot fall through his skull and down into the cavernous chest holding his singular organ. The fighters hit the ground in a thrashing, brutal grapple, Buster hanging on with one skinless arm as the other twists and tears inside the bone behemoth. Charon is slamming him into the ground, tearing pieces off of him with his appendages, and tearing out trenches of flesh and muscle with his remaining arm. It's halfway between two alley cats fighting and two jujitsu masters. I say nothing. Even my ego knows nothing I can say is going to add to the situation. Buster has a leg torn off and sent into the audience, but manages to drive his arm a bit deeper. His face emotionless, his body starts to vibrate and strain with effort as a large, wet, tearing sound starts to gain volume. Seconds later, Charon taps out. Buster won, but was out of commission for a few weeks after that. Even someone like him only has so much he can take. But now, for the real reason I felt the need to jump in here. You see, I've been taking a look at some of these stories you guys have access to, and while I'm seeing a lot that makes sense, there is something you lot are not being told. The shadows. I'm not talking shadow kids, people, dogs, or any other Disney-fied variant you've heard of. No, the shadows are less an entity type and more a force of nature. They are the things that beings who could rightly be called gods know nothing about. The oldest, most unnatural things through the corners of reality. No one knows what they want, how to stop them, or even what they look like. We call them shadows, as if you're lucky enough to survive an encounter, all you will have seen is a non-distinct, blurry form of pure black. Either the mind or the soul blocking out a creature so wrong, its very visage is a weapon. They have destroyed cities, cultures, some even say entire corners of reality. Their presence causes famine, war, poverty, and any number of other shitty things. I think you get where I'm going with this. If you don't, go watch the news. They're appearing more and more and leaving more of their taint on the world. And a lot of folks think there's going to come a time soon when they stop committing the odd massacre and delve the world and all its inhabitants into an age of horror. Unfortunately, there are many more who prefer to pretend they are nothing more than myths meant to keep us humble. This is why what we're doing is so important. If there is a war, we have to be on the same side. And we can't do that if we're hiding.